Right, stream is live. Everybody wants to make sure their microphones are on.
Check 1 2. Check check.
Reminder,
Test.
keep it roughly 3 inches or so from your mouth, and make sure to speak directly on top of it, into it, not from the side.
3 inches. My document says 6 to 10 inches.
That's what they said. I don't believe them. Seems too far.
All right. Calling the meeting to order. Good evening, everyone. Council, staff, and public. Do we have any announcements or communications before we get started?
So I'd like to mention that Dave Long from the Georgia Forestry Commission will be here this Thursday, it's July already, 30th, at 6 o'clock at the Beach House. I think there's been a little bit of miscommunication. I think some communications have said Clubhouse and some have said Beach House. So whether it's on Facebook or through emails or so, Beach House.
If you go to one and it's not it, just go to the other. I mean, there are only so many
okay,
places
all
to go,
6
right?
o'clock, be there. Yeah,
At one of the houses.
at one of the
Yeah.
city-owned houses. Yes.
All right, thank you. Any other announcements, communications?
Qualifying is this week. If anybody wants to run for mayor or a council seat, Wednesday, right, City Clerk Degenhorn? Wednesday through Friday. Go to City Hall, see our lovely city clerk.
And any other announcements and communications?
I have an announcement, if you guys want it now. Number one, August 4th, 2026, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., we are going to have our National Night Out reboot. We hadn't had one since COVID, so really excited. We ask that you guys would pass the word. I'll give you an electronic copy of this so you can share with the community. We've got some really great people coming out, so it's going to be music, snacks, some of our law enforcement partners, and me. So I'm just excited. Bring the kids. You know, we're going to be, the cool thing is that now we're going to be partnering with some of our new plazas, some of our 2 new plazas to donate some water, some snacks, and to actually put the word out too. And one of the new businesses is going to be helping with donating some book bags, so we'll have some back-to-school book bags to give away too. Second announcement is we had received communication from, I believe it might have been Dunwoody or something, where they're doing this Slow Your Roll campaign where officers are going to be highly visible throughout their prospective cities as we prepare for school, for the kids to go back to school. So just to get everybody kind of slowed back down and ready for school.
Chief, the National Night Out, where will that be?
It's going to be down at the lake. It's going to be what we call block party style. And I have, you good now? And I have one more announcement.
Also, what time is the National Night Out?
It is from 6 to 8:30. No, 6 to 8.
Okay.
So I'll be putting out some more information as we move forward. Okay. So today we wanted to take a. Gonna wait for LT to come in. Today we're gonna wait for. No, we're not. Today we're gonna take a moment to acknowledge 2 of some of the great, awesome people that we have here working with the City of Pine Lake. I want to first say good evening, everybody. Often in our various professions, we place a lot more emphasis on hiring opposed to retention, celebrating the new opposed to celebrating the consistent, the dedicated men and women who faithfully serve year after year after year. So there's an old saying that says, give me my flowers while I'm here. So today I have the privilege of doing exactly that. This evening we gather not only to recognize 2 promotions. We told them it was acknowledgements. 2 promotions, but to celebrate 2 careers marked by commitment, professionalism, and unwavering service to the city of Pine Lake. It is my honor to acknowledge the achievements of Officer Chipoko. You can stand up, Chipoko. And Officer Jason Cooper. Pine Lake is fortunate to have these leaders like these serving our community. These dedicated officers are willing to answer those calls. Sometimes it's last minute, I'm sure you know, and it's a little bit staying late, and sometimes it's coming in when you already had something planned. Today we thank you and we accepting this greater responsibility. Just to segue, you guys may not know, but we had put out a notice for promotion for sergeant, and these 2 young men stepped up to the plate and they went through the testing, which is the written testing, and then we have an oral board, and they waited and waited, and today they will find out. So I want to say congratulations to Officer Jason Cooper and Officer Carlos Chipoko. Okay, we're going to start with Officer Chipoko. If you could stand to my right, sir. Officer Chipoko joined the City of Pine Lake Police Department January 2021. He has distinguished himself through professionalism, dedication, and service. He has earned his intermediate and advanced peace officer certification, along with certifications such as field training officer, LiDAR, and radar detection, to name a few. Serving as our bilingual officer, Officer Chipoko has strengthened our ability to service and connect with an important segment of our community. Known for his dedication, determination, and dependability, Officer Chipoko has earned the respect of his peers and the confidence of those he served. Congratulations. Officer Cooper. Whew. Officer Cooper has proudly served the City of Pine Lake since 2017. That makes him old. Advancing through the ranks, he began as a reserve officer, then a peace officer, a corporal, and now a sergeant. Committed to professionalism and growth, Sergeant Cooper completed supervisory training level 1, 2, and 3, earning his Georgia supervisory certification in December of 2025. I consider Cooper a officer's officer. Officer Cooper is respected among his leadership, professionalism, and his unwavering commitment to both the community and his fellow officers. So tonight I say congratulations to Sergeant Jason Cooper and Sergeant Charles Chipoko.
Picture. Chief, picture.
Thank you for this recognition. I feel very glad to still be here, be recognized, and you still look after this one for many years.
Felicidades, muchas gracias.
Same thing as Sergeant Chipoko said. Thank you for being here. So I've been here for a while. It's a long time coming.
He's not shy.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I can grab a quick picture with
Here, I'm gonna get.
You're a regular photographer.
Photoshop works.
Thank
you.
It's like roller derby up here.
A little bit. Keeping it fun.
Congratulations to all, and we extend our appreciation to both of you and all of our officers. Job well done. If it's food, they have to share, don't they? Good job, good job. All right. That was sweet. Any other announcements and communications?
I'd like to take a moment to address anyone watching the live stream. I apologize for the blurry video footage. Just nothing's working today. And there's no way for me to fix it in real time. So if you're watching it, please use your imagination, and hopefully the audio does the trick. Help you follow the meeting.
Thank you, Ned. Any other announcements, communications? All right. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda of the day?
I move that we adopt the agenda of the day.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Do we have a motion to adopt the minutes of the June 30th, 2026 public hearing and the regular meeting, the July 14th, 2026 work session, and the July 15th, 2026 town hall?
I would like to amend just a Scrivener's error on page 6 of the June 30th regular meeting and public hearing resolution about Pride Lake memorandum. At the very end, it says that the celebration will be on September 12th with the gala following on September 25th. The gala preceded on July 25th. Just a tiny little error. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, so is there a motion to adopt the minutes with the Scrivener's corrections?
I move we adopt the minutes.
Do we
as
have a
corrected.
second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving into public comment. Please come on up to the podium, adjust the microphone height if needed, and speak into the microphone, not right face to microphone. Give yourself a couple inches, 3 to 5 inches. Identify yourself and where you live. Thank you.
Courtney Wasserberger, 470 Pine Drive. I just have 2 quick things. One, Plain is, there's a phone here. Is this your phone? Great. Sorry. First, Plain is hosting a blood drive on September 16th from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the clubhouse. So I hope to see you all there at appropriate timing so you don't accidentally have a quorum. And I encourage all of the citizens to attend as well. We'll be putting out some communication, and Ned said that he put it into the newsletter. So there's that. And then second, I started a podcast, and I think you guys would be interested because it's about you. So if you're at home and you don't want to deal with the tech problems, you can listen to my podcast called Public Comment. And you can just search it on YouTube or Spotify, and it's a summary of what happens here at these meetings, along with some other stuff going on in Pine Lake. So please like and subscribe. Thank you.
Thanks.
Courtney, is the blood drive sponsored by Life South or Red Cross? Yeah, Red Cross. Thank you. Any other public comment? Please come on up. Seeing no more public comment, let's move on to new business, Resolution R 2026-33, acceptance of funds from DeKalb County, Poplar Park. City Manager Hawthorne.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I need to go into a little bit of some exceptionalism on your usual business for this item and give you an explanation of some recent discovery. Everything that we asked in the resolution still stands, but we've had kind of a puzzle that was coming together over the last week and a half. We were receiving some communications that started with me from the county, and some staff members that I wasn't familiar with. As it turns out, the one individual who first reached out to me is an internal auditor with the Capital and Grants Division of the county. I assigned for the finance department to follow up with the individual, Dave Scott, and the finance department was able to actually contact the county and to meet with them yesterday, and they sent me a summary of what they had discovered about the county trying to reach us. I had thought initially the early communications were kind of non-specific, but I kind of surmised that it had to do with the Popular Park project. And so the discovery is that these funds from the county are ARPA funds. And if you're not familiar with ARPA, it is the American Rescue Protection Act, I think is the act. It was passed during COVID, so related to recovery from the COVID epidemic. And those funds had some deadlines and pretty strict compliance requirements. So I want to just read to you what the finance department, and we have a couple of members of the finance department now. Stephen Mayer is splitting his responsibilities with an individual that Ned and I actually interviewed for finance director last summer, and she was a person that we couldn't afford, but she's now on the Sumter team, and so she's going to be working hand in hand with Stephen, handling more day-to-day activities of the finance department. So this communication is from Michelle Uran, who I'll be introducing to you at a future meeting. And this is her communication. I'm going to read it verbatim to you, and it will kind of explain for itself because it is kind of technical. But good afternoon, Stanley. Stephen and I met this morning with Dave Scott and James Noel from the DeKalb County's Capital and Grants Division to discuss the District 7 ARPA funding for the Popular Park project. We wanted to ensure you're aware of the discussion prior to tomorrow evening's City Council meeting, as the agenda includes consideration of Resolution 202643, accepting District 7 ARPA funding for the development of Popular Park. Attached is a copy of the current sub-award agreement and statement scope of work that were discussed during today's meeting, along with monthly reporting. Based on our discussion, it appears the agreement was executed in January 2024, and the accompanying sub-award agreement anticipated project completion by the end of 2025. However, the funding was not dispersed to the city until June 2026, resulting in the current project timeline no longer aligning with the original agreement. And again, this is connected to the federal government requirements. DeKalb County acknowledged this issue and advised they will seek approval supplemental email from leadership to extend the project period, and will provide the city with written confirmation of the revised timeline. In the meantime, Stephen and I recommend that the city review the scope of the project to confirm it remains feasible and that all work and eligible expenditures can reasonably be completed within the federal deadline of December 31st, 2026. Please review the attached documents at your convenience. We can discuss any questions, and I'll forward this communication to you. So I spent quite a bit of time on the telephone with Melanie Hammett yesterday, talking about the project period, and then ended up following up with her, making her aware once I had received this communication. And I have had a chance to talk to Mr. Kendrick just before the meeting this evening. Tentatively, we believe that the timeline is at least feasible, recognizing a couple of key things. The $53,000 that you will be accepting will not complete this project. There is a cost gap. I think we are committed, however, to the original scope that was approved, and I've made sure that Melanie understands that we've got to be in compliance. The county will be holding us accountable because federal government will be holding them accountable with these more restrictive funds. I'm less concerned about the cost implications at this point, extra costs, because any extra costs will, to my understanding, I can't say up for the county, but I'm assuming will be something outside of ARPA funds, because they run their timeline to complete their ARPA funds just as much as any that the city received. And so to the degree that, as the Madam Chair committed to helping us with additional costs that may be needed, and ultimately this is a project of the City Council, and you also have some options and the funds that we have available. But I think our focus has to be on getting as much done of the original project done as possible with the funds that we have. With these ARPA funds, and this parallel kinds of how we treat our CIP projects, we usually, recognizing that there are administration costs, namely for the Public Works Department, and I think to look at that more carefully now with the, or more particularly with Mr. Kendrick's role. So administration costs of up to 10%, and normally we charge 10% to Public Works, which relieves the general fund. Construction projects we have not contemplated, particularly one that's on a stricter timetable as this, the 10 hours that Mr. Kendrick is contracted for, and to ensure that this project moves ahead, and of course it's contingent to his availability, but I think he's committed to making this happen. That will be a separate line item cost charge to the project. And that probably will be the model for any other priority projects that the council has between now and the end of the year. So I want to just go over with you, and I know you've had a chance to review the resolution, but this resolution is really more particular to the cost accounting and how we separately allocate the dollars, as well as providing for a budget amendment so that we can move ahead with the expenditures. I know Mr. Kendrick had already done some legwork, and this was before I knew that it was tied to these ARPA restrictions. So he was ready to move ahead with some cost thresholds that were at the administration's limit to go ahead and get started. And I held it up for a couple of weeks only because I knew that we needed to get the council's formal acceptance and then to amend the budget as well. So that's just to make you aware. All other provisions of this resolution stand from a cost accounting, budget amending standpoint, but we will need to move with some haste to make this project happen, because what will happen, as I understand ARPA, is that we would lose those funds, so the county wouldn't necessarily have any control of that either.
Mr. Hawthorne, you said that the funds would need to be committed by December 2026?
Yeah, more than committed, spent is my understanding.
Okay.
Thanks for the update. And I think this is a nice problem to have, actually. Like, let's go.
The only question I have is, I know the scope from the conversations I've had is different from what the original scope of work was. How does that impact the acceptance of the funds, given that that's in the CAM?
Yes, so I spoke to the chair of the committee, Melanie Hammett, about that yesterday, and told her that we've got to be careful that at least for these 53,000, even though the project may have changed, there may be some things that aren't seen as the priority, but to the extent that it is covered in the original scope, these $53,000 has to cover those costs that are still written in the scope of services. And the documents that I will be sending to you from this email captures all of that, including the map and so forth.
So I think the biggest question in terms of the scope is, in the conversations I've had regarding this park, is that the plan now is to not include a stage. So does that impact
I think an
anything?
issue of omission is less substantive than, say, something new that would be done. And we know that there has to be omission because the 53,000 isn't going to cover everything as originally anticipated.
Thank you for clarifying that. Any other questions?
What are the consequences if the project is not complete by the end of December?
At least a loss of funding as provided by the federal government. I mean, they'll essentially say, you've got to pay this back to us.
And how much additionally do we need to pay for Public Works, for the special project manager? You said 10%?
Up to 10%.
Of the project?
That's what's allowed of the project.
Okay. Do you have, okay, never mind.
Yeah, so 10% of the 53,000, for instance,
53,000.
around
Okay.
5,000. But that's the consistent formula. It just happens to coincide with the ARPA allowance as well. 10% for administrative costs is pretty typical with capital projects.
And I mean, I haven't been provided with any kind of scope of project. I know Melanie Hammett is heading this up, but there's also a committee. I don't know. I haven't seen any information about the park.
Yeah, and I would say that that's probably a factor of them working through some of that. Obviously, we would still have to bring any cost, such as proposals or quotes, up to the council for approval. So I think that's coming. I think just the urgency that I'm putting forth now is that over the next several months, we're going to have to speed that timetable up. So there's nothing that we're looking at proceeding with that won't get the council's approval, both the overall vision of the project and certainly the separate contracted pieces. So that plan still goes on. Now, we may have to revert back to how we were doing solicitations last year, because if we go with the full-fledged, say, bid process, then obviously that's going to make it more difficult. But even in that instance, we still have to come to council and get that exception.
Yeah, I mean, being that we just had to raise the millage rate 20%, I'm hesitant to, I mean, I know it's a gift, and unfortunately the timeline seems a little tight based on the time I've been sitting on council. And I don't personally want to risk losing $53,000.
When you say lose, I don't think I understand what you mean.
If we have to pay back the $53,000.
But we've been given, right? So if we have to pay it back, isn't it just returning what DeKalb has given us?
If we spend it, then we would have to, and we have to pay it back, then it would be losing it.
Yeah, the only.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, the only risk that we would be at is if we're out of compliance. For instance, if we didn't spend all of the 53,000, then we wouldn't have invested those
Yeah,
funds,
that's
so we
what-
wouldn't
yeah.
have spent anything that we've got to return.
So the idea is the project doesn't have to be completed, the money has to be spent
Yes.
on the
Right, that's-
project.
That was my question
That's,
too.
to me, that's the important clarification.
Correct.
So we heard from Madam CEO that she realizes when she was here, the scope of work is different, costs are different, and opened the door to that we need to continue the conversation. For this, it sounds like whatever progress we make moving towards this project completion is spending the 53,250 by the end of 2026.
Yes.
Where we are in the project doesn't necessarily impact that money being able to hold and have that money to spend, as long as we spend it. And let's say the project's half done, a quarter done, 3/4 done, that's the next investment that may
Yes.
be part of the process, whether it's some of it's funds from the city or from the county.
Yes.
Is how I understand it. Is that?
Yeah, and when you see the sub-award agreement that was approved back in 2024, the liability was built in even then, and that's just a function of these particular types of funds, where the county literally says, we've got the direct relationship with the federal government, but this agreement is making clear to the city that we'll be holding you liable for being out of compliance with the spending.
To me, that's 2 years of time to get a project completed versus 5 months.
Yeah, but the timetable, I think we've addressed. If we don't complete it, don't spend, we won't have invested anything that would have to be returned.
But the 5 months is not about completing the project, it's spending the 53,250.
Yes.
Yeah, the compliance is
That's a
about
big
spending the
difference.
money, not
It's not
completing the
having the
project, right?
completed.
Correct.
Okay.
You know, coming into this council meeting and not having this information before I'm hearing it sitting up here.
You know, Councilmember Hull, I'm making you aware of this communication in a way that you would understand. Well, I certainly could have sent you this communication. This is one where I wanted to have a personal conversation because of the implications for what you're about to approve. So you certainly have the option of voting no.
Finding out right before I have to make this vote is problematic for me, knowing that you had this information earlier today.
And you're always looking for something to slay the city
It's-
manager.
This
So
is your
what you
opinion,
can do
Stanley.
is to vote it down. If you're
Well,
that uncomfortable.
I'm letting you know it's problematic. If you have the information, and this is important information, I would like it as soon as possible. I'm the one that has to make the vote with the other council members. And now I've got minutes to think about it.
While we consider that, let me ask one other thing. In the improvements that are listed, installation of power is listed. Originally, Georgia Power had promised to give us $5,000 for that. Has that been a puzzle piece that is added to this? Do we know if those funds are no longer eligible to us? Okay. It was, I was on the first Poplar Park thing, and it had been offered to us, so I don't know, how would we go about asking about that? Like, would we to Georgia Power.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, so we had a internal conversation about this, and so there's an ongoing discussion with Georgia Power, and it comes at, related to this, but it comes at a good time because we're having that same conversation with them regarding the Holiday Light relocation. So we're kind of working through that as we speak.
Excellent, thank you.
And if I understand correct, we're in the process of organizing a meeting with a new representative from Georgia Power, who's our service
Yes.
manager. So that's a great opportunity
We've
to
got
coincide with that.
contact with service managers and field managers, and so we're just kind of coordinating all those things, both on the administrative side and some of the field work that needs to be done also, and the continuation of some of the replacement of the power poles and additional drops and those types of things.
Thanks. A couple other questions.
Yes.
I think it's a Stanley question. Just in case. This is really more a question for the city manager. So let's say the project as executed in 2026 is no longer a $53,000 project. Let's say it's a $70,000 project. Madam CEO has offered to help us cover the gap, recognizing that costs have changed. In the event that that money was insufficient or unavailable, my assumption is a project like this could be covered with our SPLOST funding, not our general fund, because it's an improvement, right? So it's not going to hit our millage rate or whatever regardless.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And does that include the administrative fees?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
So for 2027, if we're, let's say, hypothetically, whatever percentage we're done, work that is done from an administrative side, 10% of that could come from SPLOST, but also if we're not getting all the funding from the county, some of that would also be able to be pulled from
Yes.
SPLOST.
Can I add something? Okay, we anticipated, because of the time frame of the gap and knowing that we might not have this funding, so we included it two ways, or identified funding in SPLOST under recreation, and also in the small cities fund. We put a placeholder for the actual $53,000, as a just in case, because we wanted to, there was interest from the previous council of moving this thing forward, regardless if the funding came to fruition or not.
Okay. Other questions, comments?
Given that we're waiting to finalize what the scope would be and get the bid for whatever is going to be built or renovated or whatever, my understanding from our last meeting is that there was some just general bushwhacking and cleaning, and we needed to see what we actually had to work with. Is that something that the city can proceed with once we approve these funds? Or do we have to wait for everything to be done before we, how much of a head start can we get? Let's say that.
Yeah, right after the meeting, we did, the next day, had a couple folks come out and give us quotes on the removal of the vegetation with a preliminary scope of work. So we do have that cost in hand. But we were ready to proceed with that. But as Mr. Hawthorne said, that needed to be some procedurally, things of accepting the funds and those types of things of why this is on the agenda tonight before we could actually move forward with spending the funds. So we're ready to proceed with that if you guys are.
Thank you.
I think the only thing I want to add is, Councilmember Hull, I take your point about kind of whoa, because this is the first I'm hearing about it as well. But for me, I know that Melanie Hammett has been working on this for many years, and she's very experienced in government, and as are you, City Manager Hawthorne. And so I trust y'all's judgment if you are recommending this, that she's confident it can get done, and I don't see her as the kind of person who would put the city at risk in that way. Or you.
And can I just add to that? Because there is a process, and the reason that it upsets me is I try and be responsible, and I am well aware of the importance of communicating with the council. So I did send this communication to some. I sent it to the Mayor Pro Tem, Melanie Hammett, who is the chair of the committee, Mr. Kendrick. I didn't send it to Councilmember Kohler, for instance, who's also on the committee. And what I said in the communication was, I'm just getting this, and I need you to understand it, but I'm still trying to digest it. And what I said was, it may be necessary, because this was pretty late last evening, for us to have an impromptu meeting, which is tough, you know, trying to pull people together, particularly before a council meeting. And so there's a method to the madness. I didn't know what I was going to need to say to the council at the time that I received that communication. And I knew that I needed to speak with the people who are most closely connected, as have been designated by the city council. And today, quite frankly, not to make excuses, it's a travel day for me. And so it was no disrespect to the council and not trying to afford you sufficient time, because this resolution it's simply just accepting the funds. If you decide not to spend it, you can still determine that as well. If 2 months from now we're not making any progress, then we can bring a resolution back saying, you know, we're not going to spend, we're going to turn it back over.
So I don't think you typically want to accept money and then give it back. I think that's a bad look. And it's a good way to not get offered money again. So I would like to avoid that. I just, without seeing the monthly budget, without having a lawyer, and to get this information at the last minute, without having seen plans from committee members, I think it would be just, I'm sorry, I think it would be irresponsible for me personally.
Mr. Kendrick, do you think we can get this done by December? Like, do you feel like we are in a position?
I'm gonna say yeah. Yeah.
But again, to clarify, it is not about getting this done, it's
Right.
about
Right.
spending the
Yeah.
money.
Right. And go ahead.
Oh, no.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And I also want to say, this wouldn't, if it ever came to it, this is not the first time Pine Lake has received funding and given it back.
Yep.
That's not abnormal. That happens. We've done that before. We've given large sums of money back that didn't get spent. That to me means we're not on top of managing our process. I have confidence that we can. And again, it's not about completing the task, it's about moving it forward and spending that amount, knowing that that's not going to complete it because there's going to be more funds needed.
Correct me if I'm wrong, what you just read, you mentioned completion of the project by December of this year. I don't have the communication.
No, it's the spending of funds, as Mayor Pro Tem said, so if I use that language, it's just a way of saying it, but his is more accurate. It's
Okay.
it's the 53,000, and also keep in mind that the county has acknowledged, as I read to you, they never sent the funds to us. So already, you know, they're a full partner in recognizing that this is tougher to complete than we originally thought.
So, again, I've been a little bit out of pocket, well, very out of pocket today, and I know the email you sent me was late in the afternoon tomorrow saying, I just got this information, I'm not sure what it all means. And I looked at it very quickly, and it's like, we need more information. What is this actual information? Because it sort of felt like my first impression, and again, this was late at night and very brief read, is if this came out of the blue. I don't think Madam CEO knew about that, and it came from an auditing department, and I would guess if we talked to her, she would go, I don't know, but we don't know what her response would be. What I heard from her was, I apologize repeatedly, we blew it, this money should have been here 2 years ago, we're committed to helping you figure this out. I don't have a problem accepting the money knowing that worst case scenario, we haven't spent it, and I cannot imagine we wouldn't. We return it. So I'm all in favor of supporting accepting this funding.
Look, I think the trajectory that the former mayor has us on, we're gonna make the deadline, and we're also going to secure more funds for the project, and with an amended scope of work.
Councilmember Hull, I hear your concerns as well, and I hate a surprise too. But I think it's not. I think it's a tightening of a timeline, and I think the penalties for not getting it finished are negligible. I don't think that we will be putting more money into it than we get. So even if we just get the bushwhacking done and we have to turn all the rest in, then we've still got that space cleared up at really no real cost to us. So I don't see any drawback to accepting this fund.
Let me clarify this, though. My understanding is if we don't spend it all, we return it all. If we spend 5,000 of it, we return 53,250. Or we can spend part of it and just return what's unspent.
No, I think Councilmember Torrance' interpretation is correct.
Okay, thank you.
If I can just add, just to help out Councilwoman Hull, this is really not the beginning, this is like the middle, because when we thought that we would be in receipt of these funds, we were already ready, set, and ready, waiting to press go. That's why the CEO was so adamant about, oh wow, this thing was waiting on us, So the challenge now is that, like the CEO also acknowledges, that I know that pricing may be different because this was some years ago, so we can't use the same exact game plan. That area doesn't look the same, so now there might have to be some tweaks, but we're not just at the very beginning starting this out. There's already planned out, and we just had a meeting with some of the stakeholders via Zoom the other day, and we have a site visit scheduled in just a couple weeks. Meanwhile, Mr. Kendrick is working on some of the, not furniture because it's a park, but, some of the things that we're going to need. And I'm sure that they're going to continue to follow their timeline as they go to present before, like the city manager said, push and play on anything. Because that's the whole idea, is to get, it's a community park. We, not just you guys, but we have the county too that we have to be responsible for. So you guys will see the plan A or the plan B so we can push forward. And we know how to spend money.
Well, I'm sure it's easy to spend money, but I mean, as Mr. Hawthorne said, like, we might have to do a budget amendment for this to get the park how we want it. And even though Madam CEO is on our side, if we don't have the funds, we don't have the funds, right? So she can say that, but we don't know. And I hate to count our chickens before they hatch.
But we do have the funds in SPLOST. That's worst case scenario. That is, the purpose of this park meets the guidelines of how we
Right.
requested the money for SPOS.
Mhm.
That does not come out of the general fund.
Well,
So no budget amendment would be needed to transfer money from the general fund.
I don't know that I would spend our SPOS money in that area. If it was budgeted 2 years ago to cost $53,000, and it costs another $40,000 to finish out, I mean, that's another conversation.
Yeah.
But I feel like this curveball, without the lawyer, without the finance people, without seeing everything in front of me and being told, hey, go ahead and vote. I'm not saying I wouldn't say yes. I'm just saying I don't have the right information right now. And until I have that information, I don't think I can vote on this. So,
So moving forward, we can take a vote and see where it lands.
yep.
Unless there any other discussion? Do we have a motion to accept Resolution R 2026-43, acceptance of the funds from DeKalb County, the Poplar Park?
I move we accept R 2026-43.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion has passed.
Opposed.
Oh, sorry, you're right, my bad. Nays?
Nay.
Any abstentions? So it is a 4-1 vote. Thank you, Mr. Kendrick, and I don't think you're going anywhere. So item 2 is the discussion about the removal of the primrose. You have a proposal for us?
Yes. We were able, thank you, Councilmember Hurley, for providing that sheet with the, quite a lot of invasive species removal. I called about 6 of them and actually had 2 respond. And those are outside of the one that I had previously gotten. So what you have in as regards to the spreadsheet here, Avalon Tree Services, their cost was $15,000. Ed Castro Landscape LLC was $18,905, and Urban Sprout Farms LLC, their initial removal cost was $9,850, but they also put in a recurring maintenance cost of $6,300 for their total of $16,150. I believe after reviewing the submittals that the Urban Sprout Farms was the most responsive, being that they, what the scope of work we outlined for them was hand removal, no use of herbicides and pesticides, and also if there needed to be ongoing maintenance, that they provide, costs for that. And as you can see in the proposal, Urban Sprout Farms, they indicated hand removal. They indicated no herbicides would be used, but also that there would be extensive ongoing recurrent visits that they outlined. Now also Ed Castro did indicate that they would be recommending the use of herbicides or pesticides with their proposal, and I told them that was a non-starter, and but they did not provide any information on returning if it rebloomed. Actually had a really good conversation with both Ed Castro and Urban Farms. They seem to understand the scope of work entirely. It was just a difference in methodology of how to accomplish what we needed to have accomplished. So we're recommending Urban Sprout Farms for the LLC for the removal and to provide the ongoing maintenance. Now, in there, that $6,300 is $1,050 per visit. they estimated every 2 months, but, you know, further conversation was it more of a wait and see type of thing. So we probably won't get to 6 times by the end of the year, but it's a good thing that we do have the cost here. And if it's only 3 visits for the rest of the year, then it's half of what the outlay would be. And we are only, well, we're halfway through the month, through the year. So I don't anticipate having 6 visits, a visit per month, to keep up with the eradication. Any questions?
You know I do.
I know you do.
That was the only like sticking point for me was the 6 times to come out and inspect and management. So just to be sure and clear, it's $1,000 per visit, but that doesn't mean that we have to have 6 visits.
No, we're just asking, this will be, the entire amount is, what is it? Let me get back to my spreadsheet. We're asking for the upset limit of $16,150. If we don't need it, we won't spend it. You know,
Okay.
if 2 months from now, we notice it's blooming again, we'll ask them to come back out, pull those out, pay them $1,050, then we'll wait and see. If it gets to be December and it needs to be done again, we'll do it. But as I say, even the gentleman who provided this doesn't see us doing this on a monthly basis that will get us, you know, six visits before the end of the year. But never say never, but we'll be prepared, and you'll know that if something happens, we'll just go get it done.
Excellent. And how much time of your time do you think it would take in overseeing this project?
Well, once we lay out the project schedule, just like one of the proposals was it was gonna take 5 days. And typically this type of project, or how I approach projects, I'm there in the morning, see, you know, because we have the plan of what the daily work activity will be. There in the afternoon to see what was actually accomplished. You know, I kind of gauge what the percentage is if they were to give me a daily report on what was, you know, accomplished, and then until the project's completed. And that way I can assure Mr. Hawthorne that everything was done accordingly. So if it's approved, we'll lay out a work schedule. If he tells me it's gonna take 3 days, then we'll schedule it accordingly to be there at, you know, milestones. And then, but all of this is, you know, once we get the schedule.
I'm just concerned about your workload and your time, that's all.
You good?
So, if I understand correctly, Mr. Kendrick, the 16,150 is a placeholder, not
Upset limit, yes.
in terms of what we are going to just put in the budget for that, knowing that it's the 9850 with the potential for recurring costs being the maintenance visits.
Yeah, you will spend the 9850, definitely. But the other costs are to be determined.
Okay.
I'd rather do that now than to come back and say, I need another 1,050. And then you know, knowing that it needs to be done, I'm presenting it now.
Yeah.
And then, you know, 2 months later, we'll come back at another 1,050. So we'll give you the report through our SPR if we need to have it done again.
Okay.
You know, you'll be alerted to that fact.
So a couple other things. One is, Councilmember Holt, thank you for pointing us in the direction of Urban Sprout. I love that they have information about how it's going to be disposed, how it's going to be removed, that they're putting in a floating weed containment process in the lake so it doesn't just wash away, that they're very specific in our needs to not do pesticides. So looking through the different scope of work that we have here, and then also seeing that he's a master gardener and has gone through some certifications. This this kind of, to me, fits what we're trying to do.
The two things, I'm also reminded that my right-hand man over here is here on a daily basis, so when she's instructed, you know, she's nosy by nature, so she'll be around, you know, watching what they do. And the other thing with regards, yeah, as you recall, and I'm still crafting that, you know, I am IPM certified. I am your, you know, certified pest applicator license holder here. And so that was the primary concern also, that, you know, we adhere to the IPM standard for Pine Lake. Yeah.
I also just like the idea of getting into a relationship with an organization that could be, again, another one of our resources. So again, other comments, questions?
I have a question for Mr. Kendrick. Mr. Kendrick, this one-time cost, I think $98.50 about, is that something that should go away? So let's say that we're on a full new annual cycle. Is it more likely that we'll be budgeting for the 6 times a year, $1,050?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
That's what we anticipate. I've been talking with Stephen about that, about recurring costs. We shouldn't have, the initial cost is because we've got to do 100% of it. Recurring costs, it shouldn't, we shouldn't let it get to the stage it is now before we're removing it. So therefore, you know, the cost. But next year, we probably will, you know, just depends on how things, you know, shake out, have to budget, you know, for this 6 times a year, yes.
But some of that could come from what we didn't spend in 2026. That comes back into the general fund, and then we could, is that, if it's not spent, it doesn't stay there, or does it stay there for the next following year?
So, and we've been talking about the funding source, and I had this discussion with Stephen Mayer. I think we're agreed that the stormwater fund is probably an appropriate source. And as you know, as the council approved the additional funding for this year, we've got a larger budget, but that's going to require an amended budget that we need to bring back to you in the fall. I think the funding for this project will need to be included along with that other list of costs that we identified, and we'll just need to prioritize those funds. So we won't necessarily be budgeting for this year the full $98.50 plus 6 times. We'll tell you what we think is needed just for the balance of this year, which I estimate probably will be closer to 11,000.
So I, reading about the floating primrose willow, its growing season is spring into early summer. I think once it did its flowering, it was kind of done. I say that because I went out in the swimming part of the lake and I pulled it along the perimeter from there, and it hasn't grown back that I've seen. I couldn't imagine that once we pull it this year that we would need anyone to come out and take a look for $1,000 until next spring. I think it'll be gone.
I did have a question for Mr. Kendrick as far as next year coming out. I've been doing some research on this, and I understand that there are a lot of different cities, you know, across the country that are having this primrose outbreak. And they were saying that when you want, you know, it's important that how it's removed, because you end up reseeding areas, and what you don't get continues to grow. So so is there like a better time of year? Is that why we'll probably kind of may even need some for next year?
Well, at this time, I wouldn't want it to bloom any further. We have a cost to eradicate what we have now. If we, you know, wait and see, the cost could, you know, double.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, that, so I feel comfortable, you know, with this cost now for the removal. I'm comfortable with the methodology as I've talked to everyone, let me say Ed Castro and Urban Sprout Farms, because the methodology they're using is, you know, they're gonna boom off the area because they don't want seeds spreading and those types of things. They're gonna hand pull it. They're gonna try to pull it at the roots and those types of things. But that being said, they could have an issue where some can get away and those types of things. They really didn't mention or go into about, you know, the growing season or those types of things, but I'm sure you're correct on what you're saying. But we've, you know, they're pretty much on the same page when, you know, so I'm trusting what the experts are gonna say about this and how to get this accomplished. So if we don't see any other blooms, then we won't tap into any of the recurring costs for removal. And as Mr. Hawthorne said, then we can, you know, do whatever measures budgetary wise to move those funds and be prepared next year, you know, if it returns.
Just from my experience, and again, being a master community gardener, attacking invasive species is not a one-time, we've yanked it and it's magically gone. That's been my experience, and that's what I was taught in that class, was this, it's an ongoing process, and it might not be, so I would be curious if we do have to have them come back and it's not a full-blown invasive attack, if it's just like a small little section, is it that's still that same full $1,000 per visit, or is it based on the quantity or the area of the lake they have to work on?
I mean, I can ask that question. That's a great question. I wouldn't think so. I mean, just, you know, you get a feel for talking to folks. You know, they're really interested in this project. So I wouldn't think that, you know, they're going to be, you know, if we propose that to them, you said, hey, well, only, you know, a quarter of the lake, you know, has this, you know, I'm pretty sure they're not going to charge us the entire $1,050, you know, to remove that quarter of, you know, of the impact on the lake.
Okay.
When would they begin? About?
I don't know. If you give me approval, I will get with them, you know, tomorrow, and then we'll lay out what the schedule would be and when they can mobilize in, and then, you know, we give notice through, you know, the newsletter of, you know, they're going to be working whatever that schedule would be, and we'd also look at what the impacts would be possibly to, you know, swimming and those types of things.
That was my next question, access to the lake and how that would be impeded. So we'll find out when we know. Okay.
So is this something that community projects could be used for in the future? Because I'm sure, like what Chief said, this plant is spread by rhizomes. If you leave any little part of it in the water, it's just gonna rebloom. I think it's here to stay. But if it's something that plant could, or seed could do a invasive plant removal day drive.
My answer to that would be you're having a meeting with the invasive species guy from the Forest Department, you know, Thursday. That might be a question you could pose to him of how, you know, volunteerism could impact this, and, you know, and maybe once, you know, the professionals get out there, you know, folks, you know, observe them and, you know, see how, you know, they're doing the work, if that's something that they think that they can do. You know, I don't know what the level of expertise for a volunteer, you know, and I don't know how, if they're gonna get hip waders or by boat, or they're gonna attack it from the, you know, the berms and, or, you know, those types of things. You know, we didn't get that far, you know.
So basically, it's going to be a process.
Mm-hmm.
The first step in the process is approving the initial removal. The next step is let's gauge from there you know, it may be not until the spring that we have to look at, say, what's our next steps? Do we need to have them back? Or is there enough not taken up that we can do something different? Is that a reasonable?
That's what I'm hearing.
All right. Any other questions, clarifications?
I have a couple things, please. First, I just really appreciate the people who did the labor to like get information and research this, and it's great to like have this on the front end and hopefully ways we can communicate it to the city just so when people do see stuff happening, we do a better job this time of informing everyone. And I appreciate you being very on it with the herbicides and pesticides, like understanding what the community values. Just really quickly on the Urban Sprouts proposal, the second page, kind of the very last section where it talks about assumptions and exclusions. It mentions that the city needs to confirm any coordination with like DNR and that kind of thing. Are we good on that? Even though we don't have a city attorney, is all of that, I'm assuming, can be handled?
We have a contact with EPD.
Okay.
As it's stated in here, since we're not going to use pesticides, that we more than likely will just get a drive-by.
Okay.
And, you know, if they want to see the proposal or those types of things, we'll send it to them. But it shouldn't hold up the process at all.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, do we have a motion to accept this offer, this proposal, and move forward with Urban Sprouts?
I move that we accept the bid from Urban Sprout Farms LLC to remove our floating primrose willow.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those not in favor? All right, motion passes.
Any other questions while I'm standing up here?
Yes.
Not about primrose.
So we're going to bump down to, there were some things that I had listed under reports and other business. And part of this was given that I am going to be resigning today from Mayor Pro Tem and will no longer be in council at the end of the week, wanted to bring up the conversation about the riprap and to start to get that back up on the front of our table to talk about what some next steps could be, what we may want in terms of for direction for Mr. Kendrick, and if we have direction that you would want to offer us as well. So not really sure how to start other than where do we start?
I think the appropriate way to start is riprap for the survey.
So the question I think is like what do we do next, and what do we want that to look like, and come to some sense of direction so that we could ask Mr. Kendrick to start getting some proposals for what that would look like. Is that where you all are thinking? Where council?
Could you, Mr. Kendrick, catch us up on the conversations you've had with former Mayor Zaras about options for rearranging some of the riprap for wildlife or for planting strategically? Is that a place to start?
Yeah, I think Mr. Zares had also mentioned like turning some of the stones so some of the sharper edges are showing. Some of the stones had like more wider, flatter angles instead of them just being put down, so there's less likely of a chance of somebody getting hurt.
I haven't had any conversations with him. The last, when I responded to his letter, and I assume he read it, but I haven't reached out to him, or he hasn't reached out to me. I think I saw him at the last meeting. conversations about that. I mean, if he wants to email me, email is still the same phone number, go give me a call, we could talk about whatever, you know, he would like to discuss, but, you know, you guys have something in mind that you want to be considered, you know, we can take a look at that. You can report that back.
So what I've been hearing is it seems like for, I don't know if a general consensus is the right word, but there's a lot of interest in looking at creating some avenues or corridors in the riprap, so it's not just a continuous coverage, but to create gaps in the riprap. Is that what people are thinking?
I think that was the most recommended and requested item from the survey, is that, you know, some work be done, something like that. My two big questions are the maintenance plan for it, and for planting. And I know that we decided not to do the $20,000 planting plan because we had people saying that we could get master gardeners to recommend what to do. And I still hope that we can do that as far as the planting, but do we have a maintenance plan, a suggestion for that?
Well, one of the reasons why it was placed there is kind of, you know, low maintenance as it is. You know, when the vegetation as we planned came back through, that was kind of the goal, and it is kind of filling in like we thought it would do. We did, as you say, presented you guys, I think it was in February, with a planning plan prior to the vegetation, you know, reappearing. But that also, that planning plan included the Western Shore to replace the plants that had been inadvertently been cut down, and it was also to repopulate the retention basin that we just recently deforested right there, and, you know, move some of that sediment. So that planning plan did include looking at, you know, providing, at that time I think somebody was like causeways, I believe that was the term, you know, through the riprap. But once we, you know, that plan got shelved, you know, we kind of were left to what we have. So if you want to revisit that in some way, shape, form, or fashion, you know, we can do that with the intention of, you know, you said, you know, providing those causeways and, you know, looking at turning the sharper edges, you know, different ways, and filling in the gaps regarding planning from what is not there now. Keeping in mind that 6 months from now, you know, cold weather is going to reappear and probably will knock down some of the less hardy vegetation that's coming through there now. And, you know, we could, you know, look at planting those causeways with some type of, I would think would be shallow rooted, maybe pollinators.
Just something I'd like to be added into consideration with the planning around the riprap is that I've noticed that a couple years ago we had a really big problem with fishermen, and they were part of the reason for the wear and tear. So I'm a little concerned about what these causeways are going to look like. So I just wanted to throw that in there. And well, I guess that's my biggest thing, just about the fishermen and folks that walk their dog. You know, it's been a super decline in people actually letting their dogs in, you know, just run free on the back and get inside of the lake because of the riprap. So, and are we doing any kind of research to see how really impactful? Because it seems like it hasn't reduced, which I was hoping maybe the amount of geese and geese poop we have around here, but you know, like how, you know, like.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I just want to know if it's just simply aesthetics or something we can do to kind of decorate them, because I saw the plan that Mr. Kendricks had before, which was installing some plant life that would be like pollinators and things that are more native that actually were flowering to kind of give it a better than railroad, because there were a lot of people that did like it, but better than a railroad. That's what I heard look.
I don't
So what do you think about that?
think it was necessarily about, I think the aesthetics is just one part. I think the other part is that we bill ourselves as this natural habitat, and the riprap does seem like it is an impediment, but it also now seems like it's harder to maintain now that the stone's there. It's more dangerous. People still walk on it. Now it's kind of harder to see because there's weeds growing up and in other plants. So yeah, I mean, doing an environmental impact study and a safety study, I don't know what that's called, but I don't know if we need some kind of vegetation that makes it clear that this is a fence line and you do not go beyond it. You know, like instead of actually having a fence, but some kind of hedge without deep roots.
Okay, so I guess what I'm hearing is you want a environmental impact study on the impacts of the riprap as it stands today versus some type of minimize or removal.
Well, I don't know that we could afford an environmental impact study, and I don't know that it, at this point, now that it's down, it's just what are our options and what can we afford to do?
Okay, I'm gonna send you out a status of where we are with the funding wise with the previous projects. There is some remaining funds that we did not spend that could possibly, I'll get a proposal for this environmental impact study. I don't know what we're gonna have to look at what the scope is, but any type of study that we're gonna be doing is not gonna be 30 days, 60 days, anything like that. And then after you do that, then you're gonna look at bringing it back or putting it, you know, to the public again of saying, you know, what are your thoughts? And pretty soon you'll be at the end of the year. So
Yep.
just want you to be aware if that's the route we're gonna take.
I mean, that was something that I would have liked to have seen before the project occurred. I don't know that, I think it would be a very expensive project to undertake at this point, and I think the money would be better spent on just trying to mitigate what is already there.
So the consensus we heard from the public through the survey, and I know the residents that I've spoken with and have an interest in seeing the term causeways is intriguing to me.
That's a term I remember.
I have a different mental image when I think of that. So again, my hope, purpose in this was I wanted to bring it back up so that we can start continue the conversation and see where we go. I don't think we decide anything tonight. I think it's about let's get it back on the menu.
I can bring a couple of thoughts and ideas and email them to you, and then by that time you guys might come up with something else, and maybe at the work session we'll, you can narrow it down or pinpoint what we'd like to do.
That would be great, and I think I want to dispel Chief's hope that anything we do is going to dispel the geese, because they've proven time and again they are resilient and defeat any attempt to do anything. But I do think there's something we can do with the aesthetics of it, with the focus of, even though wildlife has figured out their ways around it, or through it or over it, we can increase the aesthetics and some of the habitat which was a concern. I would also just be kind of curious if having some of those designated causeways would also, the likelihood is that's where people who fish are going to go. Would that then minimize, and we don't know until we do it, if we do it, what might be impacted? Because I know there's areas where they've just worn down by the bridges, for example. The riprap has disappeared in some places. There's a path going down there, and they're down at the bank and causing more erosion. I'm curious, I don't know if that would potentially be a side effect of helping some of that concern. We don't know until we do it. My guess is people who fish are going to go where the fish are.
I think that's an interesting point, and I think also if we do decide to do sort of this causeway approach, or any sort of approach, honestly, to changing what we have, my thought right now is to maybe pick a small area to experiment, like pick a few areas where maybe there's a causeway, and feel it out, right? And just sort of observe before we commit to the cost or the labor of making like a bigger change. And just reflect, right? And that way, if it goes well, then we've got some assurance if we're going to take it on a larger scale. And if it doesn't, then we haven't, made a huge effort to change something to then have to change it again. So that's my only take on that.
Okay, I'll have something.
So again, my hope with this is to bring it back up to a conversation, not let it. It's just been sort of the elephant in the room for a long time.
So that's the September, because you only got one meeting in August. Right?
Correct.
Okay.
And along the same note, it's bringing back up, and I'm reflecting on the email that I think we all got from Calvin, who is managing the rentals, and he said pretty emphatically that we need to do something at the beach house if we're going to hope to bring in more revenue through rentals. So I wanted to again bring that back to the forefront of the conversation, to start thinking about what we might want to do there, what could we do there, and hopefully impact some of our income potential.
Okay.
My thought with that, Mr. Kendrick, is if you and Calvin have time to, because I feel like part of the issue with the beach house updates were just kind of a certain amount of money was needed to kind of get the attention for people, but then it felt like a lot of money for us to spend, is sort of my recollection around the hesitation. And so I'm curious, Mr. Kendrick, if you and Calvin can kind of discuss and kind of identify between the two of you and the kind of things that you both notice, what you feel like are the most priority, and see if we can kind of bid those and move from there. And that would maybe be a little less money than we are comfortable to spend like all at once.
And when you say bid, you mean
Like
ask
from
for
the,
quotes?
yeah, when we send out like a bid
Not-
process, right?
No, I think if I asked our city clerk correctly, that we can just ask for quotes from individuals or companies if it's less than $100,000.
Yeah, how we had done all the facility improvements last year was as maintenance projects, less than $100,000, which allowed us to use existing relationships with the city and request a more open solicitation, so you can get an idea for a price point, and then work with those vendors directly.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's still a process where we would have to approve the project as the council,
Yes.
right?
And
Okay.
the amount of money we spend gets your
Yeah.
approval.
Yeah, so I'm kind of like conflating all of that, but I just mean whatever sort of like asks we have.
Well, I think there was some confusion last time, and that there was a bid that went out because of maybe language that the council had used.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to get
Right,
a
Yeah.
contractor to come out for such a small job.
right. Yeah, so I think what I'm trying to say, and maybe I'm just sorry if I'm not doing a good job. My point is just if y'all can identify what you feel like are kind of the most crucial in terms of, structural issues, which we know we have, and then if there are any kind of like things that Calvin thinks are really the most important in terms of attracting renters, and kind of start with that hopefully those are smaller amounts for us to approve, like kind of do it piecemeal potentially, rather than the massive kind of bid we got where it was like the huge scope of work that we decided not to spend.
I see what
right?
you're saying, and I like that idea.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry it took so long.
So for me, I mean, that's the way I'm thinking is what, based on Calvin's experience and then talking with other people who manage rentals, what is it that we don't have that we need to bring in more rentals? What needs to be upgraded or replaced or fixed?
Yes.
What's going to get us a bang for the buck? If we're putting an investment, what's the more likely to get a return on our investment? So I like the idea of, well, kitchen, what in the kitchen? You know, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah,
Paint,
We'll
boom,
get
you know.
with Calvin. I'm pretty sure we're on the same page with it. We'll look back at what we did before and kind of update those ideas.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. For
Okay. So again, the whole hope when just having these up here, and thank you for continue to stand, is just to get these back up to the forefront. I think the next topic was holiday lights. And again, I really encourage us to keep the phrasing holiday versus Christmas. I think it's really important to be inclusive in our language and also our lights.
But that being said, we are facing a deadline that we're talking about, because if the pole lights are specially made, we do have the relationship where the vendor is holding up for a decision. When I read your email, I asked her about, what general type of holiday lights, and I think you kind of reflected on making it reflective of the vendors in the area type. So we're kind of looking at what could be done, are we talking about, since we got a lot of mechanic shops and those types of things, are we talking about doing cars or
No tire Christmas lights.
Are we just
Holiday
talking
lights.
about just do, like
had actually
candles?
I mean, a holiday wreath as a tire? Like,
Are
I
we
mean,
doing-
I did,
Are we
now
just
that we've
doing,
mentioned it, that could actually be.
like stars or?
What I was hoping is that it's not religion specific,
Right.
but more generic.
Okay.
And the tire wreath,
I'm
and
just
once
saying.
you said that, it's sort of like.
It'd be very unique and quirky, like Pine
That'd
Lake.
be kind of interesting.
We'll ask, and I'll have a conversation with her tomorrow, and we'll look at her website, and she can pretty much make anything, and we'll kind of.
Is that Jubilee the vendor, or is this a different vendor?
Lori's Lights. When I reached out to the folks of Jubilee, they were supposed to call me back and talk about schedule, and I might have missed their call,
Small cities.
but I'll re-engage tomorrow. But Ms. Lori was very receptive, because we worked with her before, and of trying to give us exactly what we wanted, but we just didn't have the firm idea. But we are close to resolving the issue with the electrical. And then I also heard about, I don't know how many people want to keep the lights down there versus relocating. So at this point, what we're doing is just getting quotes for, reestablishing everything on Rock Bridge. There's 20 poles there that are possibilities. And then also coordinating the drops with Georgia Power, which should be a minimal cost, but the majority of the cost will be borne by, having the electrician having to put new brackets, new photo cells, and those types of things to accommodate putting the, either relocating up to there or putting new lights.
So is there for the vendor who makes the lights a deadline that we need to get
Yes.
to them? And
Next
what
week.
is
Next week.
next?
And I'm
Okay.
probably talking real nice to her to get that. But I just need some input. You can send me anything by email, for your thoughts, and then I could pass that along. Let's just say, make the deadline Tuesday morning, to have ideas to get to her so that she can get back with me, because we'd also looked at, the prancing deer. They're, one-dimensional, but, the ideas you guys sent was a 3D version, and, there's a huge cost associated with reestablishing the electrical on the berm, versus just laying out cords, which is a possibility, but that becomes a little liability issue with that type of thing.
I think it's worth investigating the cost of reestablishing electricity out
He's
on the
working
berm.
on it now.
Okay.
I'd seen a number of, in the brochures that were passed around, a lot of animals. And I think that would be a really good, inclusive kind of thing, but also fits with Pine Lake. So like that 6-foot deer, like we may not have prancing deer anymore, but we could put, 1 or 2 of those on top of the beach house, or just have animal motif for the lights instead of stars or a tire.
I'm not offended. I'm not
Tiger?
touched.
Tiger?
A tire
Oh, I
wreath.
thought you said tiger. It's like tiger chasing the deer.
We'll look at it, keep it in
So
to animals.
here's just one thought. One is I love the idea of animals and nature. Let's maybe not look at this as just as we're going to get it all done now, but each year we could continue to revisit and add more pieces to that. So let's just talk about a little step with this. And I've heard a pretty good consensus about the deer.
Yeah. You should be able, I should be able to send you something that kind of finalizes the electrical on the berm, the lights, and the electrical relocation up to, so you can, have 3 different things to consider. And then, by the time you get to your August meeting, is that a voting meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Then you'll be able to say yes, no, maybe.
Okay.
So I did hear from a few residents that they do not want the lights that are on the light posts down here relocated. They would like to see additional lights
Yeah.
on Rock Ridge.
That's what I've heard.
So
So adding to,
adding to instead of
moving.
And
shifting.
just keep in mind, the recurring cost with that is putting them up and taking them down.
And then storage.
Yeah, and storage, because,
So if we just did like 10 of the poles, perhaps, on Rock
know.
Ridge, could we do that?
we counted as 20. That probably give you the best coverage you can. Limit it to 10 if you like.
Every other one, maybe.
Is that on both sides of Rock Ridge? So maybe like a zigzag pattern,
So
and then add to. And
I'm curious, since
We should wire them all at once.
this is kind of a placemaking thing, is that open to our definition of how we could spend splost money? Tourism,
This
recreation.
was, we still have a few funds left over in that line item that you approved for the holiday lighting. There's money that we didn't spend in other things, that you can, I think, can just move around.
Okay.
Because you did approve everything, so you gave yourself some flexibility there, but there's also flexibility in that SPOS 2, that you built in, the previous council built in, is lumped under a category.
So that would meet that definition for SPOS too.
Ms. Kendrick, as I recall, you can correct me because I think it was you who brought this to my attention. The SPLOST funds provides for economic development.
Well, small cities and
Yeah.
SPOS do have a component, economic development and a tourism component to it.
Definitely. So we have some potential other ways in terms of how we define that as to the impact of where we could then pull the money from.
My only other thought, sorry, did I?
No,
Okay.
no.
My only, I do think, I don't have super strong feelings around which light poles, how many, which animals, whatever, but I do think it's really important to have something on Rock Ridge. And if there's a squeeze budgetarily with the light poles and the cost, my other thought is that Pine Lake sign that I think was at the clubhouse for a little while last year and you moved it. That could be, to me, like a really easy placemaking on Rockbridge if that's the only thing. So just putting that out there as one more piece.
We got time.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've got some things that you'll be able to get to us, which you're smiling because I think you like getting things to do.
I'm here to help.
So we appreciate that. Any other?
Give us animals, bonus points if they prance.
Okay.
Big
Thank you,
animals.
sir.
Mr. Kendrick, before you leave, I was going to say this later, but since you're up here, the bioretention pond and the western wetlands work, I would like to commend you on that. It looks better than I've ever seen it. And I've been here 5 years, and so congratulations. That is some excellent work done.
Yeah, we're not finished with the bioretention. We still got to dig some of the sediment out, but the rain caught us, so they'll probably be back next week to get that done. And then now we have to maintain it going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I'm gonna thank you, Mr. Kendrick, and drive safe. Under new business, I'm going to push Mayor Pro Tem discussion lower down on the agenda and move us to public comment right now. So folks, come on up for any public comment. This is your opportunity to offer us 3 minutes of your words.
The city attorney update.
Oh, wait, sorry. Thank you. I skipped. We were talking about the attorney update. Sorry. Yes, it's not on here. So Ned, is this the place you want to do that?
Yes, Ned is going to give
Thank you.
give an update, but this is an opportunity to. I think I've often spoken about the multiple hats that really all of the small staff of Pine Lake wear, but no one wears as many as Mr. Dagenhart. I'm having him give the update because he's the person who is taking care of the transactional aspects of the city attorney recruitment. Sometimes I refer to him as city clerk or purchasing agent or assistant to city manager or director of general government or planner.
Does that have to go on a nameplate?
Yeah, we're working on that nameplate. But another one that he wears is the human resource kind of manager. He handles benefits administration. I had him working on a couple of projects today related to benefits where he has to reach out to our partners that he maintains these relationships with, healthy relationships, good relationships. So anything related to personnel, onboarding, people leaving, recruitments, he's the guy. So he's been working on the city attorney since we started working on this. I think Sunday afternoon, I was communicating with the council of the criterion that we would be looking at advertising, and then once that was done, receiving some comments from you, I turned it over to him, and he's monitoring who's interested. So I'll let him give you a general update. He's not going to go into details.
Yeah, and not going into details also to kind of protect the process a little bit as we're still receiving proposals through next Monday. But we have gotten some interest, which is good. As Stanley mentioned, once we received official communication from the previous city attorney that he was looking to end his relationship with Pine Lake, that Sunday, I understand a lot of discussion took place about the different criteria that would be necessary for a city attorney that Pine Lake wants to have a relationship with. And Monday morning, we hit play on all of that, so we We posted a listing on governmentjobs.com as well as the GMA managed, I call it GILGA, the Georgia Local Government Access Marketplace for positions. And then we also went back to direct communication with our interim city manager from 2024, Billy Beckett, who had reached out directly to a few different law firms and received some interest back. And then, of course, we wound up going with the Botch Law Group. So we reached out directly again to those previous candidates. And unfortunately, Government Jobs and Gilga has so far, it's through next Monday, but so far has produced no interest, which was somewhat surprising to me. But that's okay because we've gotten a good bit of feedback from those previous candidates that we had talked to back in 2024. And so far, I have my note here. We have three different firms that have acknowledged receipt. 2 of them have returned proposals. One of them said that they are interested and they're aware of the deadline, so I'm anticipating a proposal from them. Of the 2 firms that have returned proposals, one of them is actually a firm that has multiple attorneys that are familiar with, if not directly city, local government, city attorney, stuff. One of them had that direct experience, but public sector advocacy work. One of them, their resume listed a series of projects that they had worked on that were things like land use related projects. So a firm, if you will, of multiple kind of area experts. And then the other direct resume we got was just one individual who had a good bit of local government experience, largely in the kind of Gwinnett County, Hall County corridor. So ongoing, we have at least a couple good resumes that have been returned, and we have through next Monday to keep getting interest. That's where we're at.
So Ned, then when would we decide? How would we decide that if our next meeting is not until the end of August?
Yeah, I'll handle that part. So the way that I anticipate the process going, I think it closes next week, the first weekend in August. So Ned is already reviewing. He's going to be sharing with me. So I'll begin my review tomorrow. And then we will probably do a preliminary interview of those that seem to be qualified. And then what I'm anticipating is if we've got viable candidates, which I think maybe we do based on Ned's assessment so far, we'd probably be looking at the August meeting, and you can choose whether you want to do this in executive session or in public, to interview the firms that have put forth that at least wouldn't be a waste of your time. So tentatively, and this is aggressive because you know what a search process can be like from the work that you've done so far with city manager. So this is aggressive, but maybe you'll get to choose an attorney by the last meeting in August, recognizing you should never settle, and as you'll be faced with the city manager process, if there's the need to extend for whatever reason, you always have that option as well. But August is kind of the initial timetable that we're looking at for the council to review and potentially decide.
Two questions. One for you, Ned. Were you able to contact the firms that I passed on to you from Warren, from Sumter? I sent you 2 names.
Yes.
Did those come through you?
He's drawing a blank he's drawing a blank for some reason, but actually, the mayor pro tem sent us those names last Wednesday morning, and we were going to discuss an update, and either at the meeting or just before the meeting, Ned let us know that he had already sent them to those 2 firms.
Okay, so those were already ones you reached out to.
Yeah, it's maybe a testament to the many hats that Stanley referred to that can't always remember what I've
A strategic communicator, left that one off. That's an important one.
So I think we just get a nameplate that says the guy. The other thing would be my suggestion was to reach out to
Rushi with,
Rushi Patel from GMA, who's their legal counsel. Have you had a chance to do that?
I know we sent an initial communication, kind of just alerting them that we're pending a search. I can't recall whether or not we got a response from them, but I'll reach back out. I know we had talked about there's a couple broad questions that while being conscious of the fact that we don't maybe want to engage with soliciting legal advice from an attorney who's not contracted with the city and hasn't had time to really understand the ins and outs of some more detailed questions we might have. There is room for those broad questions. Just pose them to GMA, say, are you comfortable responding to this for us?
I think it's worthy reaching out to Rushi again, just to see if, because that's his field and he knows other counsel.
As far as candidates.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Any other questions regarding the attorney search? If the need arose, could we call a special session if we didn't want to wait until the end of August meeting?
Yeah, that is an option. So what we'll plan to do is give the council an update after we go through our preliminary interviews.
Bless you.
That will probably be by the second week, because you also still have to coordinate with their availability and giving some sufficient time. So I still think it's an aggressive timetable to even go with the second meeting in August, but all of that is depending on availability of the candidates as well. But to the degree that we may need a special meeting, we can certainly look at that option as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Thanks for getting this done so promptly. It's a big deal, so appreciate it.
All right. My apologies for going out of order, and we are now back to the official public comment time. Please, I'm never sure. I count on everyone here in this room to keep me in line.
Hello, Mira Alibasic, 734 Oak Hill Circle. So I first want to say and praise the people who cleaned all this west side and clean bushes at the that water storm water, and that was really looks amazing. Also, I would like to tell about this deer. We are getting a cow, so we can decorate the cow instead of deer and save some money. I don't know when cow will come. I would like to bring attention to the creek at the Tommy Storm's house. As I mentioned before, in the last couple of rainfalls, they really deteriorated that foundation. It becomes very, very dangerous. That creek is used to go on the right side of that, on the creek right side toward Tommy's house. Now it's full of sand. So I think we can manually clean and mechanically make that creek kind of swirl against from the foundation of the dam. I think that would be really critical. And also, I mentioned before, we can reuse riprap, make a gabions, and infill that. It will use a lot of riprap for that void in a creek. We use gabions on a trail for east wetlands. This time we will just use bigger, stronger net and bigger pieces of rock. So it's just kind of something I think really needs to be addressed. Also, I would like to, on next meeting, to see how far we are on repairing a hole on the east wetland, that hole that water gets out. They mentioned that last time. I think we need to stay on top of it. And also, now when we are going back to remodeling, I would please, please could you consider and vote that, like, you need 3 competitive bids for projects like less than 5,000. That will give you option that you will get whatever Mr. Kendrick presented tonight with this primrose removal. That was outstanding presentation. You got 3 competitive bids. You know what is in a bid, and then you vote for, like, what is the most, what is the best for you. So I would suggest that for a beach house, for any other remodeling, to do the same thing, but I think you guys have to vote for it. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mira. Any other public comments? Come on up. All right, going once. All right, thank you for your public comments. Reports and other business. Any reports from any members of council?
I have a couple. Thank you for the perfect segue about cows. That's one of the things I wanted to bring up. The call for artist submissions is going to open on Monday the 3rd. And I am waiting on some language from the Arts DeKalb, but I will have something for sure for Friday's news blast, and we will have everything ready for sure by Monday to get that out there. And it would be a huge help just for y'all to spread that to the channels you have. There is a $3,000-ish artists like fee that they can use, that they get paid for to use what they, for whatever their supplies or all that kind of thing. So all of that is coming imminently, and because the timeline is tight, I really hope people can just spread the word, because we have to choose the artist by early September. So it's a very tight timeline in terms of, you know, finding some people for the selection committee and all of that. So it'll get out there on time, and I look forward to sharing more and for y'all to hear more. But the cow thing, because people have asked, is because DeKalb has a history as a dairy farm place. And so the vision, as I understand it, is sort of like looking at what DeKalb is now and kind of this like whimsical think about our past, and the fact that the 12 cities and then the county will all have a life-size fiberglass cow. It can be, these cows can be painted, they can get custom bespoke knitted sweaters. Like, it does not have to be a painting project. So I'm really excited. I think it hopefully will just bring out a lot of creativity and just some whimsical moments. And the other announcement is this Sunday is the monthly Plain Coffee down at the Beach House. It's Sunday morning from 10 to noon. And this time we're also gonna have the Italian ice cart from Madam CEO's office. She will be out of town, so can't join us, unfortunately, but some of her staff will be there. So everyone is welcome. You don't have to be a resident. All ages are welcome, and I hope y'all can come.
Thank you, Stephanie. And I just feel obligated to say I appreciate you moving along the cow project.
Happy to help. Moo moo.
Hurting it, if you will.
Sorry. And any other council puns or resident puns for
Shepherd
cows?
Kohler, I mean, what do we, who knows?
I think this is probably the right time to thank our outgoing Mayor Pro Tem for taking on an unexpected task, and I can't say enough, Jeff, about your work over the past 4+ months.
I think it was a lifetime.
Lifetime of stepping up to serve the city, represent the council, and keep us moving as a community and as a municipality through a rough time with poise and goodwill. Thank you.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Fine.
I didn't even vote for myself for pro tem. I mean, come on now. I had to be reminded. On that note, I would just say, yeah, I never thought of myself being in this position. Didn't get here by choice necessarily in terms of I did choose to run for council and just did what I felt needed to be done. Just step up. And can't do it without other people providing other additional help and support. It does take all of us. It was a huge learning curve. Again, I think the really cool thing that I keep getting reminded of is we have a lot of fans out there that we don't even know about outside of the city, whether it's in other municipalities or in organizations that support municipalities. So we have people rooting for us. And I think both in my work and then thinking here, one of the things that keeps jumping out at me is how do we keep hope alive? Not just internally, but also externally for, in this position, being elected officials. I think part of our role is to help residents see that we're moving in a good direction. I have great confidence in the four of you in doing that. I'm ready for a break. Saying that in all honesty, because it's been pretty consuming. But you know, most of my work, and I got my start in the field I'm doing is working with an organization called Outward Bound. And one of the premises of Outward Bound is there's more in each of us than we perceive we can do. And you don't know what you're capable of until you have to step up and do it. And my guess is all of us up here didn't really know what we're stepping into until we got here, and then things happen. And we just do what we think is the best, next right decision to make. So I think that's what we're trying to do, and I, again, think we have a good core of folks here who are willing to do that. So I'm hopeful and optimistic. So appreciative of the experience, at the same time cursing the experience. So thank you. Which leads us into the official last final piece is, this is my last meeting as Mayor Pro Tem. So that means we need to discuss and vote on a new Mayor Pro Tem. So I am just throwing that open.
Some introductory comments on this topic, and something that I don't think this has been discussed, but I want to put it out there in my reading of the charter with the Mayor Pro Tem. And what the charter calls for is, after each regular election, at the organizational meeting, the Mayor Pro Tem is set. So theoretically, probably as well as, I don't know this for sure, but I believe this is the case, historically, the Mayor Pro Tem, unless there were some other changes or disruptions or resignations, has served for probably the next 2 years until that next regular election and organizational meeting. So this year has certainly been an exception, with the mayor resigning and kind of making the Mayor Pro Tem's role a super role, having to serve as Mayor Pro Tem, still a council member, and in place of the mayor as well. Your next regular election is November 2027. But because of the circumstances this year, you've got a special election, which in effect requires anybody who is interested in the role of mayor to resign, such as we anticipate that Jeff may qualify to run. So you've got in this interim period the need to set a mayor pro tem, all the more important because you don't have a mayor. But I think the council should consider that you will probably have another opportunity with the replacement of 2 members of the council, both the mayor and a council member. That you probably, it's a question that I think the council will get to determine, but what I would call the more permanent setting of the mayor pro tem's role in its more traditional form.
Thank you, City Manager Hawthorne. So at this point, again, I think I want to step back a little bit and just leave it up to who is going to be carrying the torch forward after Friday, and I will be qualifying. That is my intent, which meant at the end of day Friday, I'm no longer on council. So we will have a position on the council open, but tonight is about determining who's going to be carrying forward in the role of Mayor Pro Tem. So since I will be not part of the council, I'm going to just step back a little bit from that conversation and let you all do that. And that's not meaning I'm not going to take part in it, but I think that's up to you to step into this a little bit more. So throwing it out.
Shall we do nominations or discussion first?
I would think nominations and then discussion. But
Yeah.
I'm just one voice.
So,
I nominate Thomas Torrent for mayor pro tem.
and I nominate Stephanie Kohler.
All right. So discussion, the way I kind of hope this would be is an opportunity just to really be transparent and share what that would look like, and have a good conversation about that.
So I'd like to hear from each of you why you're the best choice to have the gavel for the next 4 months, let's say.
You got nominated first.
All right. Well, I would like to say that I feel clearly the most qualified to do this by pretty much any metric. I've got tenure. I've been doing this for 2.5 years. As far as engagement, I have not only speak to a large section of our residents, but I also am going to and have been going to the DMA meetings, the GMA meetings. As far as education, I've got an MPA. I've got my master's in public administration. As far as continuing education goes, I've been to every small cities conference that since I started, and so this is my 3rd one this year. And I feel even as far as practice, because I think you're all aware that I often say, Council, do we have anything that we want to try to put on the agenda? So for all of the necessary qualifications, I've got that, and as far as like doing small parts of it already, and I think it'd just be good for continuity as well.
Good. Okay. I appreciate you sharing those metrics as far as the ones you think are most important. I have different ones because I think context is everything. And I think for me, looking at this as a choice that's relevant for the next few months, not sort of big picture you know, the next mayor's term and kind of long term. What's on my mind is that we are a professional city with a professional staff, and none of us on council are qualified to run the city. I mean, we can't functionally do it. And so for me, for my part, in terms of how I show up here, that includes having really good relationships with the staff. And I think that in a time when we are hopefully going to get a city attorney very soon, when we are looking for a city manager, when we need an acting mayor through November, and the person who's mayor pro tem as the acting mayor is going to be the main channel to the city manager, who is then the main channel to staff. I think that for me, that has paramount importance. And I have a very healthy, solid relationship with the city manager. I think we work well together, and in this, you know, liminal time with these few months, for me, that's really important.
Can you clarify with the mayor pro tem role? It's traditionally you vote on a mayor pro tem after every regular election, not a special election, or?
Yeah, the charter doesn't speak to the mayor pro tem's election following a special election. It only speaks to it following a regular election. But obviously, we have extraordinary circumstances. And regardless of that charter provision, obviously, whenever the circumstances may be that a mayor pro tem resigns, which hasn't occurred yet, so that would need to be an official resignation by Jeff prior to your vote, I would say. Obviously, the charter contemplates that role be filled whenever it needs to happen, but particularly when the mayor's position is also vacant.
And if I understand it correctly, the charter doesn't say you can or can't, but whoever's in that role can resign at any time, and there would have to then be a vote for a new mayor pro tem. So hypothetically, I could have resigned last week or last month, and we would have had to have a vote. It's not dependent upon the special election.
Right.
So in the past, the assumption was the mayor pro tem just kept serving, and that was Mayor pro tem Bordeaux. She could have at any time said, it's January of 2025, I'm done, it's time for a new person. That's a decision we could make.
Yeah.
So it's not just dependent upon, if I understand it correctly, City Manager Hawthorne, on the election. It's also the person willing to serve, and if it's vacated, then we would do
Correct.
the vote.
The circumstances.
Yeah.
I mean, my inclination is whoever ends up being mayor pro tem, that we just revisit all of this in November. You know, we're going to have a lot of transitions, so keeping all of this open to new decisions.
I think having votes like this is difficult, because if there's more than one person that wants the position, then it's tough. You don't want to tell someone that you like working with, you know, hey, I'm going to vote for the other person. And I would prefer to do this less often.
Yeah, but also we did this in January. Like, I think choice is good.
And I appreciate the opportunity to discuss.
Yeah, I think
in,
so
in
too.
public.
I mean,
It's a good
choice
exercise of
brings
democracy.
discussion.
Yeah.
So
I'm not disagreeing, but I think that is part of our job. That's one of the hardest parts, is you voted no on something tonight, and yet you're still here and we're still talking. That's part of our job, and I think it's also really important to model that we can do that. We can agree to disagree. A vote doesn't mean I don't like that person, or I do like that person.
I think that's paramount in what we're doing, is trying to decide what's in the best interest of the city. That's no reflection on the person. That's my hope, and that would be my wish when we have discussions like this. It's circumstances, who's the best person in this, at this point in time. We may want to revisit, we may not want to revisit in November because the context is different. We will then, whether it's me or someone, we will have a mayor. We may choose to revisit it, we may not, but that's a different context. So I think it's really good for us to have these conversations where they're not easy conversations. But that's what we're here for. And I think it's important for people to see that. That's why I wanted to have it as a discussion, to bring it up. And I think it only makes us all better. I really, honestly, that's my hope, is that this makes us better. My 2 cents.
Great, I got more questions.
Let's do it.
Both of you currently have other extracurriculars for the city, for the community of Pine Lake that you've taken on. Stephanie, you're herding a cow, and on are several now suddenly very active arts directional things. And Thomas, you put on a big old show in the form of Pride Lake in September. Both of those have deadlines that are coming up and a lot of consuming things. How do you plan to manage both those obligations and the obligations of getting us through what we know is coming in the next few months with council?
Well, it's a good thing that we have a break and we only have one meeting in August, because that's when all the big heavy lifting, the end heavy lifting for Pride will be. There'll be some execution, towards, around September, but it won't tax me in the way that the next few weeks are going to be. At the same time, I like being busy. The busier I am, the more active I am, and I like having a good spread of activity. So I don't think Pride will be a detriment or in any way a stumbling block for this position, and especially after September. Then it'll be all of my time devoted to it.
I appreciate the question. I think you and I are very alike in that way, as far as busier, sometimes a more contented place. But I think partly I'm a good time manager. I've run a lot of different things in my life. And again, I'm looking at this from the perspective of being open to revisit it. So it's really the next several months. And I think I will end up working very closely with staff and the Melanie's committee and all of that anyways. So I definitely want to lean very heavily into staff expertise about all things as it is. So I see it as sort of an increase of things that are going to happen for me anyways. That there's a lot of coordination that's going to be happening in the next several months for me with some of these projects. And the idea of taking on more, yeah, that's daunting on the one hand, but I also think that my concern is antagonizing relationships as opposed to me bringing harmonious relationships in.
I don't necessarily have a question right now. I just want to clarify, regardless of the next couple months, whoever that person is going to be, I'm not going away. And I am more than happy to help and offer support, mentoring, whatever term you want to use in terms of being here I'm just not disappearing. So regardless of who that person is, and that goes for everyone on council, I'm still going to be here.
Thank goodness.
It's going to be interesting to be standing over there, but I will be there and be a sounding board if need be. So just want to offer that to everyone.
This is the former journalist in me. It's just going to come out.
Yeah,
So,
let's go.
Thomas, this is for you specifically. We talked about this over the weekend. Your husband is the president of Plain right now. If you were the mayor pro tem, although that's not the mayor, it would mean 2 members of the same household having the lead quasi-elected role and also the head role of our largest civic organization. For me personally, that's too much concentration of power in a small town like this. Not in any way suggesting that that would be something either of you would intend to abuse, but the optics, I think, are not great. So how are you going to address that?
Yeah, thank you for that. Chief Justice Brandeis said that the best thing for, when talking about transparency, the best disinfectant is sunlight. And that's where we get our sunlight laws, or sunshine laws. And the 2 things that we are required to do, or are recommended by the GMA in cases of perceived or actual conflict of interest, is disclosure and recusal. Disclosure, attention everyone, my husband is the president of Plain. It is disclosed. By recusal, I have already stepped down from any decisions made about Plain. There is no way that I can affect or offer a judgment in their favor, and I don't even really know what that looks like, or what that, there's no money that changes, there's no preferential treatment. And so if we were talking about, I think at some point you had said empire building, or something like that. We all have plans for this place and what we want it to look like. And my idea of empire building with Tim is pulling out the Primrose Willow so that we don't have to spend as much. Getting community activated, getting our volunteerism back into shape. And I think that is not above and beyond, but is what is required. Disclosure and recusal. There's no laws that prohibited elected officials from serving on nonprofit boards, much less their spouses. There's any number of spouses that are running nonprofit boards that have elected officials that they're married to. I looked at the handbook for mayors and council members on the GMA website. This is jcities.com, resources, ethics, conflict of interest, and abuse of office. And what they talk about for conflict of interest is it is improper and illegal for a member of municipal council to vote on any question brought before the council in which he is personally interested. And then they go on to construe financial interest, and saying that there must be an opportunity for measurable profit to the individual arising from the transaction. And clearly there's not an opportunity for measurable profit, I don't think, unless we count citizen engagement somehow. Georgia law does allow for members of governing authority to serve as volunteers, as far as like firefighters even. And as far as, and they go on and on to talk about the 10 different ethics, and we are a city of ethics, so you can look into those, but it's sale of property, abuse of office, including bribery, incompatible offices, so on, and nothing really that, improper influence, about extortion, conspiracy to defraud, and none of these really have anything to do with this situation. One thing that's really interesting in the Code of Georgia is under Title 45, Public Officers and Employees, Chapter 10, Code of Ethics and Conflicts of Interest, Article 2, Conflicts of Interest, and then general provisions. It is also essential to the proper operation of government that those best qualified to be encouraged to serve the government. Accordingly, legal safeguards against conflicts of interest must be so designed so as to not unnecessarily or unreasonably impede the recruitment and retention by the government of those men and women who are best qualified to serve it. And then they go on to talk about stepping away from creating unnecessary barriers to public service. And I feel putting up a hoop of saying that Tim running Plain and me being Mayor Pro Tem does just that. It is not a barrier that Georgia law applies, has anything to say about, other than disclosure and recusal. And so I don't feel that it should be a stepping or an impediment to me taking this position. And I feel like we've done enough as far as making, creating barriers to public service. And we want those who are motivated and qualified to be public servants to do so. So that is how I would respond to that.
I take your points. I don't think any of the statutes that you, or ethical codes, address a town that has basically two civic entities, the government and one large resident membership organization. As Mayor Pro Tem, the Mayor Pro Tem has the ability to set the agenda for city council meetings, decide what the rest of us even get to discuss, and that in tandem with the leadership role of Plain means essentially setting the agenda for the entire city, the direction we go, whether it's environmental or cultural or, you know, our volunteer spirit. I'm not saying that I disagree with any of the things that you and Tim have put your sweat equity behind, but I think for a town of our size with the structures that we have, regardless of intent, for me it looks problematic. I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't run for Mayor Pro Tem, but I would suggest that for the duration, Tim step back as head of Plain to eliminate this conflict.
What's wrong with that is that there's not a deep bench of people just wanting to run Plain. He was voted in. He was asked to do it. He agreed. He was unanimously voted in. No one had any concerns at the time. And then it took him a number of months before he found a vice president even. So him stepping down would put Plain in a really uncomfortable place. There's not a lot of civic leadership. And I think it has partly to do with how we have treated our volunteers. Let's go back to the town hall that we had. How many times did you hear, are we allowed to pick up garbage again? Are we allowed to do anything to keep our place beautiful? People are scared to get involved because there have been decisions that have made people afraid to help. And I think saying that you have to step down as president of Plain because your spouse is also is leading as Mayor Pro Tem, that seems like another burning hoop that we are asking people to jump through. That is, again, an unnecessary barrier.
I understand your point of view, but I also made it clear when we talked last night that this, to me, is, again, no matter the stellar intentions of both members of the household and no matter how much goodwill they've put into the city, for me, this is the one I can't get past, and I can't vote for you to put the city of Pine Lake in a position where two people who are married to each other effectively lead our community. I'm sorry, I can't.
I mean, that's entirely your prerogative. We will shake hands at the end of this, no matter how it goes. We'll still take walks. We'll still talk about things. When it comes to setting the agenda, I think there are two things I would be listening to. One, what does council think we need to put on the agenda, and what the city manager thinks should be on the agenda, and then that negotiation. There's not any way for Plain to want something that is not recognized by the rest of council, or if not, at least 2 members of council. So it is not my decision to adjust the agenda in a way that would benefit Plain in any way.
So I'm just going to jump in real quick. If I'm hearing you correctly, it's not so much that you have concerns that something will happen, but the perception of that. And perception can be reality, not always. And I think there's the nuance of being in such a small community that we have the opportunity to do things a little different, because some of the rules and guidelines don't always fit us, and that's one thing I've learned from the small cities conferences I've been to, is like there's not a way to do it. What I would maybe throw out is, if there is a concern about some of those things, and that would be, I think, with anybody who's in a similar position, what are things that we could do to ensure that that's not, that to address those perceptions? So beyond recusal, just again, having what we're having right now is a really open and honest conversation, and to me, that's one of the things that it would take, is just being very clear, very open, very transparent. And I think we both talked about that when we ran for council, was transparency. I'm just going to throw it out, because like what I really try to do is help to find middle ground. And it's hard when you have, I don't know what the right word is, just different perspectives. So what is the middle ground for us to figure out a way, knowing that this is a really unique position? I don't think anyone who wrote the charter would have ever anticipated we would be down to 3 council and a pro tem who's also a council. I don't think anyone who wrote our charter would have anticipated we would have had to hold a special election, 8 months after a resignation of a mayor. So I think this is part of the process for us, is to figure out how we can do what we've got to do given the circumstances we've got. And this is when leaders step up, when there's, in my mind and in my work, what I teach is like anybody can really lead in ideal conditions. It's when we have less than ideal conditions is when people really show up. Real leaders show up. So this is not an ideal condition. How do we make a decision and a choice to move forward? And I think we can do that. For me personally, I think whatever you all, and again, I still do have a vote, which feels weird because I won't be sitting on council. But I think part of this is having a difficult conversation, having a vote. Not everyone may be happy with the vote, but then we still move forward and meet and discuss and continue doing the work, because that's what we have to do.
I just want to speak to, Jane, you didn't ask me this, but I think you and I share this perspective. And part of my concern with this, and again, thinking about these few months, and then for me, being open to reevaluating, is that like one of the things that they talked about in training, the training we did with GMA, was the optics of things, right? Not about the actual character of people involved, and not being, for me personally, so much concerned with that, but I do think the optics matter. And for me, part of what's driving this is that, for me, there's a difference between the married couple of the president of Plain and a mayor pro tem with a mayor, versus these few months of the president of Plain and the mayor pro tem, who was also the acting mayor. So that's on my mind.
Worst case scenario, what does that look like to you? Like, what possible malfeasance could I do in this situation?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking for a specific example. The one that I would point to is from 2 weeks ago. You emailed us with wanting to share some communication with Plain, and I replied and thought that we should have the city manager weigh in, and it ended up turning into a discussion about the media policy and all of that. But the way that I read your communication is that you felt, for your own reasons, that you felt justified in that sharing that communication was perfectly fine without getting any sort of consensus from the governing body, without asking the staff. And I think that could have gone in a very different way. So that's an example.
Well, just to be clear, you did agree. You were the first person to respond to that email, and you agreed that it should be shared and transparent.
I said I agree with the principle of transparency, but specific to this example, I wanted City Manager Hawthorne especially to weigh in. So me agreeing with, like, yes, I understand your reasons for transparency, and on the general principle of transparency, I agree. And in this context, I wasn't on board with taking that step at that point.
Thomas, did you share?
I did not.
Okay. So he emailed us first.
Sure.
And I got,
Okay.
we had a discussion.
Right. But
I
again,
didn't agree with it,
Yeah, that's
and
fine.
I did not share.
Right. But you asked me for an example, and I'm giving you the
Right,
example.
but in that case, there was nothing that happened.
Sure. But my point is that when I read the email, it sounded as though you felt comfortable taking that step because you had found the reasons that you thought made sense. And so when I read it, I thought perhaps it had already happened. So that's an example.
An example of something that didn't happen.
An example of potential malfeasance, per your question.
This is just stop.
So, again, I want to, this is not about targeting, blaming, pointing fingers, et cetera. This is, again, about a conversation about who is the right person in this moment to serve in that role. Just a reminder, let's not make this, not saying anyone is, but let's not make it into a personal thing, because that then detracts from the conversation. And just a reminder again, if one person has a perception, you are more than able to disagree and have a different perception. That's the process. We are able to do that, but we're also able to move forward and find a way to make an agreement on something and vote. That's the hard job.
I have a comment on this part of the discussion. Councilmember Torrent, and it's less to do with malfeasance, but a practical point of Mayor Pro Tem in the absence of a mayor. Unquestionably, it is a more powerful position than the mayor in its usual context, or the Mayor Pro Tem in its usual context. But there's also a practical aspect of the potential conflict with Plain and the spousal relationship. The recusal for decision-making also includes discussion that could ultimately lead to decision-making. And when the city attorney was here having advised, I remember a discussion came up in a past meeting where Councilmember Torrent rightfully not only recused himself, but removed himself from the dais. And what we have to be careful of is, even when we don't intend to violate kind of the letter of the conflict. And it was, I think it was 2 weeks ago at the last meeting, plane was a topic of discussion, the agreement. So there was a fair amount of exchange, and there wasn't an action item on, but there is a pending action item. And as I recall, there was pretty free-flow discussion between all members, including Councilmember Torrent. And the letter of the conflict, in retrospect, that probably would have been a need for recusal from discussion to occur. But what kind of exacerbates the situation in the context of holding the role of Mayor Pro Tem and as acting mayor is that the role is specific to running the meeting as well. And so with kind of what I would say, even in the new draft agreement, with seat responsibilities kind of being incorporated under plane, I think there's more of an opportunity for those discussions, even when it may not be a decision-making, where council that will be down to 4 members would potentially, at any given meeting or some portion of the meeting, that Councilmember Torrent would have to recuse himself, take himself from the dais and the discussion. You would have to elect another chair, and then there's when, you know, this council has probably close to perfect attendance, almost to a member, but at some point there could always be absences, and on that threshold of 4, and an absence of a member, and there potentially being a conflict, you could lose quorum, conceivably.
So quorum is how many?
Quorum is, with the regular 6-member, 5-member voting council, 3. Being down to 4, you could,
Well, quorum is usually interpreted as 50% plus 1, so my interpretation would be 4 members, a quorum would still be 3.
So just to clarify, what we're talking about a period where there's going to be 1 meeting in August, 2 meetings in September, and 2 in October. So we're yes, it's 3 months-ish. Is it 3 months? And that doesn't mean work doesn't happen outside of those 5 meetings. My question would be, are you all capable of having a conversation where if a topic comes up that anyone needs to step back from, you're able to manage that? And I think that's a fair ask. We should be doing that anyhow. And I don't think whoever's in the role should change. But that's something we really haven't said out loud. Is at any point in time, if any of us feel like someone should, then are we gonna say it? Or is that person
Yes.
gonna self-select? And I think that's just part of what we do.
I think we've shown that we're perfectly capable of asking people to do ethical things. And I think Thomas has shown several times that he has stepped down from the dais. He stepped down from the role as plain liaison when Tim was elected as president. And any conversation I have ever had with Tim has been one-on-one. I mean, it is I mean, I get that the perception right? That's your hang up. You're not worried about any actual.
I have no concerns about the ethical strengths of the individuals in question and actually getting business done. However, the appearances really, really do matter. And the appearance that even for a short period of time, we are ceding leadership to One House on Orchid Drive, I think is more than I am prepared to support. I do think it's a completely different situation if there is an existing mayor and the pro tem is doing the regular pro tem things. That's a completely different structure in terms of how agendas are called, how meetings are run, et cetera. The recusals obviously still would remain relevant, but I feel like I can say this now, or the court of Facebook can say it tomorrow, but that's where, that is where I come down.
I would ask that whoever is the next mayor pro tem would be very communicative with the council.
Of course.
So
Yeah.
that's,
It's important.
it is. And, you know, it's been very quiet lately
Mm-hmm.
through emails.
Heard.
So I want to see more communication between us.
I appreciate you bringing that up.
Mhm.
Thank you. City Manager Hawthorne, if you would be willing to speak to the recusal issue, just because I want to make sure I understand it, right? As Thomas has said, as far as, you know, recusing himself when it's appropriate, but if he's a mayor pro tem and my sense is that we want to vote on the plain MOU sooner rather than later, is what happens in a meeting if we're going to vote on the plain MOU. How does it work in terms of recusal, who's running the meeting, that kind of thing?
Yeah, the recusal would automatically mean that as the chair of the meeting, and not just as a member of the council, that you would be without a chair. And so there would be a number of procedures that would then need to take place before you could continue the discussion or make a decision on who would assume the role of chair of the meeting.
So just to make sure I understand, if Thomas recuses himself while he's chair of the meeting, you're saying the procedures would include we have to choose a new chair to continue the conversation?
Yes.
Okay.
Is a chair a presiding officer, or is that the same thing?
I would distinguish that the chair is simply that, chairing the meeting. I'm not familiar with language of presiding officer, certainly not in our charter. It may be in Robert's rules of order, but I'm much more familiar with the simple who's chairing the meeting. And that's not selection of a new mayor pro tem, but someone to facilitate the meeting.
So we could go on forever and talk about this. We have two nominees. I would ask if there's any other questions, and then maybe a final comment statement from both of you.
Sure.
And then we call a vote. Is that? I said that, so if I resign before the vote, I'm still on council, though, because that doesn't end until
Right.
Friday.
Resign the position as mayor pro tem.
Okay.
Just to voice it for the record, that's all.
Okay. So, other questions, comments?
No questions for me.
No questions.
Anything else either one of you would like to say?
Well, thank you. No, I think just to reiterate, this has been a really great discussion. I think it really speaks to all of us to be able to get into this because it's hard, it's complicated, and there are really big implications for the city. And I think I appreciate knowing more of what's behind everybody's reasoning, regardless of whether we agree on it. So I just appreciate the willingness and the candor. And for me, I think it's reinforced my own. Like I said, I think that in a professional city where none of us can run this without staff, that in these months where things are very liminal, I still think the staff relationship is the really, pressing thing for me.
Well, I'm glad we did this. I'm glad that we get to talk about it. I still feel that I'm most qualified to do it. I feel like the recusal aspect we can figure out in a quick 2-minute who's going to chair this for the next 30 minutes. I don't think it'll be a big ask to move the chair. And I would hope in November, when we do have a new mayor, and we do have another council member, that if selected tonight, that I will be doing such a good job that you want me to continue it then. I don't want to look at this as just like a 3-month thing, because we've had 3 mayor pro tems in a year. Well, no, just 2. It will be 3 perhaps, and it's a lot of turnover. And I would hope that the next 3 months would be training to do mayor pro tem for the next year. And that's how I would put myself forward in this position, as it's not just a temporary gig, but the next year and a half.
And I'm just going to throw out one last statement that when I was deciding what I wanted to do, one of the concerns that weighed on me was just this. Would this be a good thing? Would this be a disruptive thing? Would it just be a thing? And I wrestled with that a lot, about whether I wanted to resign and run for the last year of the mayor's term. Because that's a concern. How do we keep moving forward? And then when I just threw out the idea of let's really talk about this, one is I'm just really proud of everyone here for the conversation, the willingness to have a hard conversation. That's what we're here to do, in my mind. So thank you for that. And on that note, I'm going to say I resign from my role as Mayor Pro Tem.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Free at last.
For now.
And I guess we call a vote. So since I'm not Mayor Pro Tem, I don't run that, do I? I've said
Unresigned.
the words. I've said the words.
I think we can go ahead and just call a vote.
So I call the vote?
Sure.
We nominate you to.
No. I'm giving this up.
I thought you were done.
Well, that was interesting. So do I still have to resign after I call the vote, or?
Go ahead and call the vote and then resign Mayor Pro Tem. I'll adjust the record.
Okay. So all those in favor of, I guess we just do this one at a time, one person at a time. All those in favor of who was nominated first? Thomas. We'll do that. All those in favor of Councilmember Torrent being Mayor Pro Tem, vote.
Aye.
Aye.
And I vote.
You're still in council.
It's your choice. Okay. Ooh. Jeez. I'm going to step back for a moment and not vote.
or should I? No, I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote for Councilmember Torrent. All those in favor of Councilmember Kohler?
Aye.
All right, so we have 3 votes for Councilmember Torrent and 2 for Councilmember Kohler. Congratulations for a good conversation. Again, I think this
Good
is
talk.
really,
Congratulations.
really good. And thank you both for being willing to do that. And I am done running this meeting.
Congratulations.
So, he said I've already resigned. Do I have to say it again? Okay, so would you like to close the meeting then?
I suppose so. Are there any other reports or business? We're not going to do executive session, correct?
Please do.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
A motion to adjourn this meeting.
I second.
All right, this meeting is adjourned at 8:57. All those in favor?
I.
Aye.
Fun fact, a single motion adjourned. As well as recess.
So no second?
No second needed and no vote needed.
Driver's waiting, so I'll see you tomorrow, Ned.
See you tomorrow, day 1 of qualifying. Hope we got a line out the door.
We'll see.
Night, sir.